Hi, I'm so excited to be with you today at the Expression Engine Conference. I spoke last year when we were in Minneapolis, and it was so great to meet people in the Expression Engine community and get to see people in person and get to see all these people that we've been talking to on Slack and through ticketing and things like that. But today I'm not going to talk specifically about Expression Engine. I'm going to talk about a subject that I think affects a lot of us. So hopefully that this conversation can be beneficial to a lot of us in our business track and in our life, and just as we kind of go through everything that we're trying to do. The title of this is "No, I'm Not the Secretary," and this came about as a conversation with one of my coworkers, just kind of talking about my history in my career. And it sort of sparked this idea of something that I could share with you all. Um, so I started working in technology right out of college. So nearly 20 years ago, I started working with this little company, and they did training materials for big Fortune 500 companies, for the government. We had GSA contracts and all that stuff. So that they were producing material to train, staffs of people. So we would produce training guides for Microsoft products and Lotus Notes and using Blackberries and all kinds of, probably antiquated software now. So I was learning technology. I, just graduated college with a degree in English, and was hired as a technical writer. I was the only technical writer on staff at that point. So I was learning all of these technologies, learning all these programs, and then writing step-by-step guides on how to use them. So I was learning all the time. I was training myself stuff. I knew a little bit of graphic design layout from my newspaper in college, but I didn't know a whole lot. And so I was working really hard at learning things, just trying to understand what needed to be done. It was my first job. I wanted to do really well. I was really ambitious. I had gone to college. I had graduated first in my class in the English department. I was really driven to do well. And so I got this job, and I was so excited. I'm a writer. This is, I'm not living in my little tiny town anymore. I moved to, a city. It's a very small city, but compared to where I grew up, it was big. So, so I'm in this new job, and I'm learning all the time. So I take notes. That's how I process. That's how I do things. I write down, when we have a meeting, I write down when I'm, uh, grocery lists, everything, reminders, all those kinds of things. It's just how I process. I'm writing it down. When I write it down, I'll remember it. And so I was always writing. I was always taking notes. If I didn't know something, I'd take a note, and then I'd go learn it. And so in the staff meeting, I was in, my first job. My all these people were kind of sitting in this circle and talking about, what we were planning to do. And I think we were talking about maybe hiring a couple of different people and taking notes. And my boss, she just kind of flippantly makes this comment, "Oh, Joanne is the secretary." And I was like, that is like the worst thing you could possibly have said to me. It was so degrading to me. I was so driven. And she said to me, "You're the secretary." And I'm thinking, that's like the lowest point on the totem pole here. Now, let me just pause and say there is absolutely nothing wrong with being a secretary or an executive assistant. I have filled those roles. I have done those things. They are, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I was driven to do something different. And I thought I was in this role where had a certain level of the expectation of capability. And when she said that, I thought maybe she just thinks that I'm a note taker, filling a spot till they find somebody better. So it produced all this doubt in my mind. And she absolutely meant nothing by it. She just, noticed I was taking notes and made a comment. And so for me, it really stuck with me. And as I progressed through my career, that stuck with me. I was always kind of on guard. Are people going to think I'm a secretary? And then I did actually encounter that where, I was the only woman in the room, so I was kind of assumed to be the secretary. I've encountered that numerous times. Or, I'm the youngest person or the newest person or somebody taking notes, so they kind of assume I'm the secretary, and so that's always been kind of in the back of my head. Oh, they're going to think that I'm this person who's, has a very limited box of ability, and that's it. And so, what that thinking I'm a secretary isn't really that they thought I was a secretary. It was the fear that they would think I wasn't capable, or the fear that they would realize how incapable I really was or what I didn't know. And so for me, it was just this constant fear. They're going to figure out I'm a fraud and they're going to find somebody better to do what they've asked me to do. I'm just kind of a space filler until they get someone better. So what I've experienced in my career and a lot of things is called imposter syndrome. The scientific definition is anxiety or self-doubt that results from persistently undervaluing one's competence and active role in achieving success, while falsely attributing one's accomplishments to luck or other external circumstances. It is a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. So, this is sort of something that has raged at times in my life and in my career. Even the day that I brought my first kid home from the hospital, I looked at my husband and I said, they're going to let us take this baby home? I don't think we know what we're doing, which is true. You don't really know what you're doing. But I thought, oh, we're a fraud and they're going to figure that out. And then, so I had those kind of self-doubt thoughts in my personal life as well. And, it could just be as simple as difficulty accepting praise. It was nothing, so you undervalue what you did, or, you feel uncomfortable. You don't know how to accept that praise because you're not really sure you deserve it. So I found this illustration. I thought that was it was fitting. All these people in this image are thinking the same thing. That next person has it all together. They're all thinking that next person has it all together. And I think we do that. We think the next person has it all together, and they're thinking, I don't have it together. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a fraud, and I think there's some comfort in that, and knowing that most of us feel this way at some point or another. Or maybe it's more like this. I read about imposter syndrome. I don't even think I'm smart enough to have it. And the thing is, it's not just really high overachievers and these brilliant people who have it. All of us do. All of us have our moments of brilliancy, and all of us have our moments where we're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and they're going to figure it out. So what do you think? What do you think of yourself? Do you consider yourself a fraud at times, or have you ever thought about that? Are you really, really confident in your ability and nothing can faze you? If you are, I envy that. When you have a win, do you accept the applause, or do you just like, I just stumbled upon that. It's just kind of dumb luck. What do you think? Look, I in my career, I worked in this place where a management position came up, and it was someone else I worked with. I recommended this person for the job. I thought they'll be good. They'll be good. They'll be good for this job. I know what this job is. I know what should be done. This person will be good for this job. And I disqualified myself from even mentioning that I was interested in doing the position because I didn't have a computer science degree. I didn't know how to code. I was not a programmer. I wasn't a developer. So I absolutely there was no way that I would even think to apply for that position. So I'm going to recommend this person. And they hired that person, and that person, moved into that role. And what I found was I was every day taking what needed to be done and telling that person, here's what you need to do. Here's your list. And I need you to do this today. I need you to do this in this time because we can't move on until you do these things. And so every day I was spoon feeding this person, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm doing this job. And, so for me, it was a realization that I could have done this job. And it was like, wow, I totally disqualified myself from this, and I'm doing it. Here I am doing this job. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to do this job. And so I just started to say, look, I can do this piece. I can do this. You let me do this, and I can roll with it. And things just started to go really well. And it was like, I realized I had this ability that I didn't even realize I had. And when I did that, people started noticing, hey, Joanna can do that. She's the one doing this. And so that's when my confidence grew, but then people started to see I was capable of doing so much more than, this sort of box that I had allowed myself to remain in. You know, I had people come up to me and say, I had no idea you knew this stuff. I'm like, yes, I do. I know what I'm talking about. But I was too afraid to kind of allow people to see that I did know that. And it was me saying, I have this ability. Look, now you can see what I can do. So what do you do when you have these thoughts? I think we all experience this. They say 70% of people have suffered from it or are suffering from it. I think it's a higher number. I think that much more people suffer for it. That's probably just a number of people who admit it or understand that they've experienced it. I think it's higher. I think a lot more of us do. So what do? Do you connect with any of these kind of thoughts? There was a mistake and I slipped in under the radar. There were only 2 candidates and they liked me better. Or I fill the demographic that they're looking for. I'm not qualified. I don't have 10 years of experience and a computer science degree. My success is based on dumb luck. I was at the right place at the right time. Tomorrow, they're going to discover I'm a fraud, I'm faking it, and they're going to fire me. And they're going to put somebody else in who knows what they're doing. Any minute now, they're going to turn this off and they're going to take me off the stage. So all of those thoughts can come in and, can kind of paralyze you. They can either paralyze you or fuel you to do more. And so when I sat down to do this presentation, I thought, I really don't know what I'm talking about. I should probably do some research. And so I started looking up imposter syndrome and doing research. And, I started listening to a lot of TED Talks. If you search imposter syndrome and you start looking up videos, there's lots and lots of people who talk about it. And what I was seeing is all these very, very, very successful, brilliant minds have experienced imposter syndrome. So much so that some of them have run and literally hidden because they were afraid. And so, there's lots of material if you want to look up more. But one of my favorites was a TED Talk given by Mike Cannon-Brookes, who's a CEO of Atlassian, a $1 billion company. He is a CEO of a $1 billion company, and he says he still feels like a fraud sometimes. So, I love this quote from him. People think that successful people don't feel like frauds, but I think the opposite is more likely to be true. The most successful people I know don't question themselves, but they do heavily, regularly question their ideas and their knowledge. So being successful isn't about questioning yourself all the time, questioning your ability and that kind of thing. It's about questioning what you know. I need to do this project. Do I know enough to do this? I think that's really, really comforting to know, you should be questioning what you know. You should be trying to grow. You should be trying to be better. But it doesn't mean that you're incapable, and it doesn't mean that you're not enough. So I have this illustration about imposter syndrome. This on the one side we have imposter syndrome, and it's kind of like what your mind would say. That I have this little green dot of knowledge, and everyone else has this big orange spot of what they know. That's what imposter syndrome would tell you, those thoughts. But reality is you have a little green dot of knowledge. And someone else has a red dot of knowledge, and someone else has an orange dot of knowledge. And they're all very similar in size, and they overlap. And you may not overlap with everyone, or you might. And I think that, that's what you really need to remember, is that the reality is it looks more like that than what imposter syndrome would tell you. So what do you do when you have these thoughts that I'm a fraud, I'm a phony, I'm going to get found out? What do you do? So I was listening to this one lady, and she gave some really good suggestions. She said, make a list of what you're qualified to do and what you're not qualified to do. And so you start to make that list. The first thing, okay, you've got this big project. Okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can figure out the P&L, I can figure out the risks, I can do this. Okay, I don't have to worry about that. I can breathe on that piece. Okay, this other side. I don't know how to code. I can't build the app. I don't know the language. Okay, I'm going to have to find somebody that does, because I can't learn that language in the time being that I need to do this. Okay, so I can find someone that does. I can hire someone that does, or I can get a team of people that does. Okay, so that takes care of that list. I know what to do with this list and what to do with this list. Okay, then those negative thoughts are like, okay, no, I can do this. I can handle this because I'm gonna cover this with what I do know, and I'll cover the other side with resources. And so this idea that you don't have to be everything is so comforting when you're having those negative thoughts. And when you isolate those things, you sort of free yourself. You start to be able to say, I can do this. So the other element of that is when you do that, you sort of create these two sort of channels. Your knowledge, you could be a mentor to someone. You can help them be better at what they do because you do have knowledge and you do have ability that you can share. Be a mentor to someone. On the other side, find a mentor. Find a brilliant mind who will help you. You ask somebody to talk about what they know and what they love and what they're passionate about, they will talk. They love to do that. And they're going to start to feel really good, and you're going to elevate them by asking them that. And that's going to elevate you because you're going to start to gain knowledge. You're going to start to have these great network resources. And you can pass that on. And so it's this great cycle of not negative thinking anymore, but helping each other and helping yourself. And, especially this year, let's just give ourselves a little bit of a break and realize we're human and realize the next person is human and they're going through stuff. And, empathy, which is suddenly this kind of catchphrase in business, like it's some kind of new grandiose idea. Empathy, let's be kind and good to people and gracious and merciful and human. That's a new idea. And I think that's one of the things that hopefully has come out of everything that we've experienced this year is that we can be that. And so I'll leave you with one last thought. It's a great piece of advice that I got listening to all these different things and preparing for this. Know you deserve the stage. So, someone in authority said, Joanna gets the stage right now. Maybe I don't deserve it. Maybe I'm not qualified to speak about this. But someone in authority said I could. And so I deserve to be here. I don't have to prove that to you. I'm here. So to know that you deserve the stage. Maybe you got in where you are from dumb luck. Maybe you don't really deserve it. But you deserve to be there. Just own that. I deserve to be here. And if you feel like you're lacking in what you should be or where you should be, then work towards it. Earn it. But know that you deserve to be there. Start believing that. You'll start believing in yourself. Other people are going to pick up on how you treat yourself, how you talk about yourself, and that confidence that you exude and portray to other people. So I hope this helps today. I've enjoyed being with you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Joanna, thank you so much for that wonderful talk. I think that was some excellent advice. And I think you're right. I think I can't remember the percentage you said, if it was like 70% of people that have imposter syndrome. I think it's higher too. I think if you asked all the people at the roundtable yesterday, at the business roundtable, who here feels like that, I bet you, there's probably some people that would raise their hands, at least internally. Let's see here. I'm trying to see if there's some questions, but I actually have a question for you. When you kind of made the journey from being, having the imposter syndrome to kind of taking the steps to breaking out of that, did you feel like, was it sort of a light bulb moment, or was it more of a process that you had to work through? And I know you kind of gave some advice of what to do, but if you could provide some information about that, that'd be great. Okay, we're on. Yeah, we're on.
Okay.
There'll be a little bit of a delay. So I don't know if you heard did you hear my question?
I did. I was seeing it and I was like, but
okay.
myself. So she's not
okay, great.
like making a connection.
Okay.
So the question was, is it, a series? Is it just a light bulb moment, or All right, I'm seeing like a delay. So am I in the backstage or the
Yeah,
stage
no,
view?
you're on the backstage. You can just forget about the front, the
Okay,
stage.
cool. I'm gonna close that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't just like one epiphany moment where I was like suddenly like I was like, I got this, I could do this. It was suddenly sort of like these like actionable moments when you had an epiphany. So it was like when I realized that I had recommended this guy to do a job I was literally doing for him and he was doing very poorly, I was like, wow, that's so I started to act on it, and then it wasn't like I could be like, well, I should have this job instead. It was it was like raising your hand and saying I can do that, and then the next time doing it. So it's sort of like chunking away at these kind of this beast of sort of the hole I'd kind of gotten myself into. But I think the point is that it was the action when you had the moment of revelation that started to change things, because you can have these great revelations and be like, I can do this. And then you just piss that someone else is doing it for you. But if you start to act on it, and then that's when I started to see real change.
Mm. Now, as far as finding mentors, because I think that was some really fantastic advice, because I mean, first of all, making yourself like, giving yourself the like pat on the back. It's like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. But wait, how do I learn how to do that? Do you have advice for how to find mentors? Sometimes it's a little tricky, like if within your company, outside of your company, that kind of thing. So
yeah, I've found the sort of the easiest way to find one was to be one first, because you kind of knew what you were looking for. Like, so, one of my employees asked me to mentor her. And so that kind of, it was kind of like, wow, okay, I can do this. And so it was sort of like I learned what that relationship should feel like for me. And so then when I made, like business connections and other connections in the community, I knew kind of how that should be like a healthy relationship versus just going find somebody that I had like, you're amazing, and I'm just going to follow you around. So that for me was kind of how I did that. But I think it was, finding people that, you get around and you start to feel challenged and you start to feel positive about yourself. So it's sort of a twofold thing. If you're going around somebody who's just talking and they make you feel good, but they never challenge you to do anything, probably not a great mentor. But if you, somebody who just challenges you and then never gives you any kind of kudos, might not be the most healthy relationship either. But I think for me, I saw the relationship and kind of saw, and then so I could figure out how to emulate it. And then it sort of went after people. It is hard to go looking for one. Mine, I've had ones in different organizations. In my organization is probably the easiest because you're kind of in the same vein on one respect, but on the other respect, maybe you don't want to talk about your particular business stuff. So, but I think it's just getting around people who are like-minded in some ways, who will challenge you and who you feel comfortable saying, hey, push me when I'm wrong.
Sure. Here's another great question from Andy. He wants to know if you have any advice from leaders and managers, advice for leaders and managers who have team members who struggle with imposter syndrome, and maybe how to help them with that.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think everybody does. I think we probably, if it's not you, maybe it's your partner or somebody that you, even at home, so you kind of learn to, I think, listen to what they're saying. And because they may not recognize the self-talk that they're doing, there was some statistic, and I couldn't find like the real data, that we have 1,200 seconds or 1,200 words every minute of self-talk in our head. And most of the time it's negative. So this negative self-talk will eventually come out. And so when they're speaking, if you hear them kind of, like you have this great team meeting and you're like, hey, Sam did this great thing. And he's like, nah, I didn't do it. And you're like, no, you really did it. And you kind of, I'd say call them out when they start to talk like that. Challenge them to take ownership when they have done it. It's like, you're going to challenge somebody to take ownership when they mess up. Challenge them to take ownership when they do well. One of the management training courses I had said that it was really good advice. It said, when you have those meetings where you got to discipline somebody and you got to have that awkward conversation and you gear up for it and you plan it and you write everything out and you document it and all that stuff because you got to do all the official things. They said that you should spend as much time when you're giving someone praise in a meeting as you would in discipline, because you're giving them positive examples. Oftentimes we say, you're doing a good job. Well, that doesn't tell them what they're doing right. We tell them what they're doing wrong, and we're very specific and we're very detailed. But when we can tell them what they're doing right and be very specific about it, I think that helps build them up. I think it's two things: build them up and challenge them are would be my two pieces of advice for that.
Great. And yeah, that internal, I mean, it's so true. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about this talk is everyone watching is like, oh yeah, I do that. Does anybody?
It's like, and you're like, oh, yeah, it's me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's part of it probably too, is like understanding it's a problem is the first step, right? So you can, so watching this is, I think, is a really good, a good first step.
Right.
So let me see. Does anybody else have any questions? So what we've been doing, I'm just going to say a few things here and we'll see if some more questions pop in. What we've been doing is after the stage presentations wrap up, we send everybody over to a lounge. I'm going to pick lounge 3 this time because everybody's been doing other ones. Just to have a more informal setting if somebody wants to chat with you or something, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also will take this opportunity, and you guys please enter questions if you have them, but I'm going to take this opportunity to also let everybody know that the tickets for next year's conference have actually just been posted on the site. We are going to be in Philadelphia. It's very exciting. You can go to eeconf.com and find those there. There's early bird pricing. So, and hopefully Joanna can join us again. She's the favorite of ours, the presenter. So let's see, here's another question that came in from Tim. For those of us in small companies, how do you suggest finding a mentor? So it's related, but.
Right. So I think it's, for me, I have the benefit of my team is really small, but we have a parent company that has a lot of different kinds of people in it. So that for me makes it really easy. But I think like this is an opportunity to sort of force yourself to network. I am terrible at networking. I hate it. It's like, that's like the worst pain that you can make me do. Go make me talk to people. I'll talk on the stage, but make me go small talk with people in a big room. I hate that. But I think finding a mentor, like networking in business, networking in your industry, it doesn't have to be your industry, but you're going to have to do it. And you're not going to find a mentor probably with your team, especially if it's small, that, it's just, they're not going to fall in your lap. You might have to go ask some people and get rejected. It's just one of those things. It's sort of like one of those challenges to yourself. Like this, the reason I spoke at last year's conference is because the person that I was mentoring said, you can do this. I'm going to challenge you, submit something. And I'm like, okay, I'll submit something, but whatever. But that was the reason. And so I think it's the challenge of doing something so then I started doing stuff I was scared of. I was like, well, I'm going to do things I'm afraid of. But that's when you're going to find people who are going to help you grow, is when you make yourself do the things that you don't want to do. As far as being small. So it could be someone outside your industry, like Greg Crabtree yesterday. I was like, I just want to follow him around and listen to his statistics all day and hear what he has to say and those kind of things. He's not necessarily specific to my industry, but it's very valuable information. So it could be a lawyer, it could be just a business manager, somewhere else that could be a good mentor for you, depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for something creative, maybe go in the creative vein. If you're looking for business advice, I would look for somebody in that vein of work.
Oh, that's great advice. And yeah, I think everyone just wanted to follow Greg around. So maybe we'll just have a Greg conference next year too.
Yeah. That's right.
Anybody else have any other questions? So I plugged the conference for next year. We also have feedback forms that we'll post in the chat here for a second. In a second, you can go to econf.com/feedback or speaker-feedback rather. And everybody, I know our speakers, they put a lot of work into this, and they love feedback, and that's how we make better conferences, is to get all of that. Okay, well, I think with that, why don't we, and Brian made a really good point, actually, that if there are questions you want to ask that are not going to be recorded, the lounge is a great place for that too. So I'm just going to say, we'll go over to lounge 3. And I want to thank you so much again, Joanna. Great presentation.
Oh, thank you.